Hello, everyone. Thanks for logging in. We're just going to give a few minutes here for some people to pop in. If you don't mind while you're waiting, if you could, but just please put your institution name where your name is so we know where you're coming from. That would be amazing. And also just a note that this session is being recorded and that has already begun. All right, for those just coming in, thanks for joining us today for the self-care roundtable here. Super excited to be able to chat with you. Just so you know, the recording has started, but if you can please add your institution to your name, just so we know where you're coming from, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Sorry, Jenna, my internet just bleeped out. I heard you start to say for those of you coming in, and then it cut out. So could you repeat that?
Absolutely. Seems to be how it always goes. Just welcoming you and letting you know the recording has started. And if you could just add your institution to your display name so we know where you're coming from, that would be great.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll just give it a couple more minutes. We're waiting for about 30 people to come in here. So we'll just give a couple more minutes just to give them time to log in. Hey, Jared, how are you?
Oh, I was on mute. I'm doing well.
Good. All right, well, I don't see anyone else coming in, so let's get started. Thanks so much for joining me today to talk about self-care. This is absolutely a subject that I think all of us have become kind of more aware of over the past year, as we've been thrown into something we never predicted that would happen or foresee that would happen. So I'm really excited to be able to chat with you today about self-care for yourselves, what that looks like in your workplace, and also how can we kind of be proactive and address it as we move forward. Now, I know going into this presentation, some of you, luckily, Christina would be one, where facilities are open and you're able to offer some sort of programming. Where those of us in Ontario is very different. We're limited to what we can offer right now in person. So things are very digital, I'm going to say, and very virtual focused at the current time. So as I go through my presentation, please just roll with it if I'm saying, as we reopen, but talking about still as your staff team and your student bodies come back over the next few months, what that will look like to you. So again, just so you know, this presentation is being recorded and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel in the next week. So if you want to, if you have to jump out for another meeting, it will be there. If there's any questions or comments throughout the presentation, please feel free to unmute and I will be happy to have that conversation. Or if you want to leave them in the chat, we can do that as well. All right, so let's get started. All right. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so welcome to the first session of our June webinar series. So we will have 4 sessions that'll take place, and I'll show you those. I'll talk to you more about them at the beginning. So this one is self-care and well-being for ourselves, our teams, and our students. So self-care is the act of taking care of your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Workplace stress. I think I just need to jump out of here. There we go. Can you still see the slides?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, Allison. You're perfect. Thank you, Michelle. All right. So workplace stress. Of course you do. Okay.
It's fine.
I don't know how to. Okay. I'm like, I don't know how to. I was trying to play around with it easier. So I'm glad this was recording and everybody can see this. But so just kind of going through this, in our industry, we're very known for needing to focus on doing a lot with a little resources. So I think that we, are all familiar with saying yes to 100 things and wanting to do everything just because that's how we've been brought up in this industry is, being in sport and rec, we want to work together, but we also know on the campus rec side of things is sometimes we have to do a lot more with, less financial resources and less human resources, as well as it isn't always easy for us with campus partnerships. So looking at our workplace stress, there's absolutely decreased mental and physical health, and that's going to result in lower productivity. It's going to result in overscheduling. So all of us, I think, laugh when we hear that our jobs are 9 to 5. We know that's not the case. We know that these are things where you're going to get a call at 6 a.m. because someone didn't show up to open the facility, or you're going to get a call at 11:30 p.m. when they can't lock the facility properly because something's happened or someone isn't leaving on time. These are things that coming into the industry, we accept coming in. We love what we do. We're passionate about what we do, but we also know that, sometimes our self-care or our overall well-being may be impacted based on our overcommitting to things. And I think coming back now is we're realizing after the past year of having time to reflect that we were burnt out, and we'll chat about that in a minute, but we were doing a lot of things that, we have to reconsider going back in saying, is this best for our workplace? I look at our team and we have 4 staff serving 38,000 members. We can't do everything we want to do just because it isn't humanly possible. We don't have the ability to introduce new programs unless we're getting rid of something. Fatigue on the job, again, is, we just keep working, we keep doing everything to make sure that our student body has exactly what they need, that we have new, unique, innovative programs. But again, is that also can have an impact, and it can play a role on our personal well-being and our emotional state based on trying to be people pleasers that we are. More sick days. For us, I don't know about you, but I think that sometimes we just kind of try and push through things. And this has been a year to realize, like, okay, if I have a cold, maybe I should stay home and I shouldn't pass it through the office. I shouldn't take that risk. But again, as we want to show up, we want to be there for our student staff, and we want to give 110%. Poor judgment. Again, this can be, making those personal decisions. Is should I take on more or shouldn't I? And again, it goes back to we're always focused on our students, whether it's our student staff or whether it's our students who are utilizing our program. We want to make sure that we're doing the absolute best we can to provide those things. And sometimes we don't always weigh the pros and the cons of should I be taking on more or not. Moodiness that affects our teamwork. Again, I think when you're in a small team, this also is impactful when you're doing a lot, right? And you just have those days where you're like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I just need a break. Just everyone leave me alone. And you often see, someone's office door closed, just knowing that they need a break. But that can also impact your team as well. I think we're really strong in this organization that we want to support each other, and everything that we do, we are interacting with each other. Membership services works with the fitness center, which works with aquatics, which works with intramurals. Everybody's a really tight unit, and that's the amazing part about our industry. But it also can have that downfall that if someone's not doing great, it can impact your team. And being aware of that when you're going in and just saying, like, today's not a good day, Either I need support or I need space, and being able to be open with your coworkers and knowing that you can have those honest conversations with them. And the big B, which is the burnout. And I think that's something that I've highlighted, but we'll continue to talk about. And obviously workplace stress over time leads to less healthy employees and employers. And I think we all kind of know with what that also results in as time goes on. And talking about burnout here, so burnout, or the B word as I will call it in this presentation, is something we're all aware of. And I think over, the past few years, we joke about it or we'd make light about it, but we never really wanted to admit the impact that it was having on some of us or our coworkers or our loved ones. And just knowing over the past year of taking kind of a slower approach to life, right? Like not running kids in every direction, not doing every volunteer opportunity, not working endless amount of hours, you've had time to kind of catch up with yourself, and notice those different changes. And I want to say the different changes from the self-care and the burnout, because obviously your self-care has been impacted in a different aspect as a result of COVID, where burnout, you'll be able to see that, okay, I'm not as stressed as much when I open my inbox, or I'm not, feeling overwhelmed knowing I have to walk into an office and there's going to be, 10 student staff who are listing all of these things that have happened in the day and I got to solve them right away. So knowing, the difference between your self-care and your level of burnout, and you may have not been burnout, but this has been a really good year for many people to kind of reflect on what they've been experiencing in the workplace and realize how to reintegrate themselves back into that. What are my priorities? What are the things that I need to keep doing? And what are the things that can kind of just take a pause and be on the back burner right now until I get back into that good routine and feel I'm at a place where I can bring it back in. So some of the symptoms of just recognizing either in with yourself, a loved one, or your coworkers is that mental and physical fatigue, just always feeling tired and just you can't get enough energy to do what you need to do. Decreased concentration. So trying to get all your tasks done, but not actually being able to complete them because your mind's kind of jumping all over, or you just don't have that ability to truly focus on what you need to. Increase in physical illness and sick leave. So whether people are using their sick leave because they are actually sick or that they're just not wanting to go into the office that day, they need that break. They need to kind of detach from that. And isolation and withdraw from others. So maybe you've noticed a team member who just kind of has taken more time to work on projects on their own. They're not necessarily integrating with the full team. They're working really independently there. And really noticing that and feeling okay to have those honest conversations and check in with them. And then it could be poor coping strategies. So if you notice in people's behavior or changes in the things that they're doing, maybe they're not eating as much, or maybe you notice that, they're drinking. They've mentioned that they've had a whole bottle of wine every night for the past week because they just have a lot going on. And being able to kind of listen for those strategy or listen for those things that they may be saying when they're speaking with you, and being able to, ask further questions just to support them and not necessarily judge them. And causes for this, as we mentioned, excessive workload. So again, I think we can all attest to this. Little control or autonomy in the role. And I think that differs from every organization, and it differs with every supervisor in the ability you have to oversee your own programs and make decisions there. Failure to maintain boundaries with each other. Perfectionism. I think this is one that I can attest to, is that I want everything to be perfect. If my name's going on it, I want to make sure I've gone through it 20 times. I've looked through everything. The spelling's right, the punctuation's right, et cetera, et cetera. Clearly here, this is bugging me that you can see my slides and my notes, but it's kind of the thing that that we have to go with. So that's something that, you have to be able to just kind of roll with the punches and realize that things aren't always going to be perfect. And poor self-care. So if you have people showing up who, have said, well, I haven't worked out in a few weeks. I just don't have the motivation to eat healthy. I just don't want to go out. It's hard to shower. It's hard to get out of bed. Those are things that you want to also watch for in your student staff, right? As we, chat about workplace coming up, these students have been at home a lot for the past year, for the past 15, 16 months. So being able to help them adjust back into your staff teams in the workplace, but also realizing that they're going to have to adjust back to being in a classroom and what that's going to look like again. Self-care in the workplace. So employee self-care is becoming more recognized in companies, which is a good thing. And I think this is something that is an area where we're absolute leaders in, campus recreation. We understand the importance of health and well-being. We understand the importance of being active, eating healthy, just moving your body, standing up and stretching. But I also feel like, going back to our last conversation, is it kind of counteracts with us wanting to do so much that we might not always have time to worry about our self-care every day. Employers and employees don't just benefit from practicing self-care, they need and they require it to be successful. So if you're not focusing on the well-being of your team and their health, it's going to impact those who are showing up in the job that they're doing for your organization. They're not going to be as excited to be there. They're not going to be giving it 110%, or those might also be your people who are often calling in sick or showing up late for a shift. Supporting an employee's health lowers attrition and increases productivity, engagement, and business success. And again, the time that you put into your people is what gets back. And we really want to do our best to develop our healthy leaders in our organizations. Now, the big one, returning to work. The stresses around returning to work are beginning to being felt across the country as people are starting to realize that they're going back in person. So some of you may already be in the office and you've made that adjustment. Some of us are still a month or two out from being back into the office full time with our teams. And it could be even longer for some of our other coworkers who aren't fully required to be on site. However, after being home, back at work, home, back at work, I think as many of us felt this roller coaster the past year, we really want to do our best to make the transition easy for ourselves, but also easy for our teams. What things can we put in place now and be proactive for being able to make sure that that's an easy start as we return? So I'm just going to go through some tips here with you. So number one is our keeping routines simple. And I'm sure many of you have routines that you've developed over time that you've kind of really stuck to, but you're also noticing now that you're in a completely different routine. So looking back at how that's going to be when you return to your gym, when you return to running kids to different sports, when you return to, just being able to go into work 9 to 5 and be able to see coworkers again. So building routines over time removes pressure and it allows people to figure out what works best for them. Keeping routines and goals realistic and simple helps motivate people. It helps them stick to their routines and make tasks and responsibilities feel less stressful. So knowing what that new routine is when you're going back, what are the things you're going to prioritize as soon as, I'm going to say, Ontario reopens? Where are you going to spend your time? Is it going to be making sure that your work is good and your family is good? And then from there, you're going to integrate going back into, your workout routine, or you're going to find time to go to, let's say, a painting class or a dancing class, and really figuring out what that's going to look like to make sure that, you know what's kind of coming. Stick to routines that feel familiar. So I think we're all excited to come back to, to the reality, and we want to see everybody. We want to have barbecues. We want to, just be able to hug somebody that we haven't been able to see the last year. I think these are the simple things that we're excited for, but also knowing that going back into those situations can cause some anxiety. Like for me, I'm thinking of, you want me to go to a concert where there's all of these people and everybody's so close, and these are the things we wouldn't have thought about before. They wouldn't have crossed our mind. We would have just walked into that venue and just had a great time. So going back to past routines and remembering for you what worked, what didn't work, and what can help make the shift in person for you feel less stressful. Find ways to incorporate aspects of the current routine that you're practicing now into your past routines prior to COVID, such as morning exercises or meditations, and continue promoting positive habits developed during time that you spent working from home. Start practicing those routines now. In order to ease the return to in-person work, begin practicing morning routines as a way of giving yourself time to relearn what pre-pandemic mornings look like before, right? When we had to get up and we had to rush out the door and you're grabbing something for breakfast and you're just making sure that you get there on time. knowing you forgot your lunch. Whereas at home now, I think mornings are a lot easier, that you can make that breakfast and, oh, I'm home for lunch. I can kind of make what I want and not have to worry about it the night before or the morning of. And being prepared not only helps people to stick with a schedule, but it also eases the stress and anxiety associated with the uncertainty of change. So if you can somewhat in your mind prepare for what's coming and start to create that routine, it hopefully will help you there. And the big one is talk to your workplace about what returning looks like. So we gain a sense of control and agency when we have more information. It's important for us to find out and reach out to your company, your workplace. If they haven't contacted you already, initiate that conversation. Ask what it's going to look like when you go back to work. What are the expectations? What maybe is your space going to look like? What are the hours going to look like? Is there a rotation of someone working from home each day? Or is everybody going to be back in the office? By talking to your supervisors and by also talking to your student staff or your employees about the safety plans and measures that there is in place for when you return to work, it will help ease your stress and also their stress. And it will inform employees on what type of routines that they can build and they can expect over the next few months. And the last one is be kind to yourself. Understand that adapting to new routines and circumstances is difficult, and that the feelings of stress and anxiety associated with change are normal, and going back to our previous normal is going to take a bit of adjustment, especially given the circumstances of a pandemic. So by taking all of these steps personally, but also preparing for these steps as a supervisor and ready for your team to come back, or ready even just for student body, you're going to be able to help them immensely. And I think of an example, how are students going to be able to enter the facility? Are we providing that information ahead to them of what they can expect? Are reservations going to be required? Is it going to be drop-in again? How many people are going to be able to enter the facility? Because for students, campus rec is a big sense of support for them. So if they know coming into the facility what it's going to be like, then they'll be able to plan accordingly. We're going to take a minute here and we're just going to do some breakout rooms, and I will send you these questions, but you're going to be put into 3 rooms. And then we'll come back and we'll discuss kind of what you came up with. So room 1, what I want you to talk about is what are the challenges you're anticipating for your personal self-care as we return, and how can that be addressed by yourself or by your supervisor or your team? Room 2, what initiatives will you be focusing on as your student, staff, and yourself return? Do you have any unique ideas? Room 3, how will you be integrating self-care and wellness into your programs and services for your student body? Any new programs that you're going to be introducing as a result of what we've experienced in the past year. So I'm going to ask Sarah if you can please divide us into 3 rooms, and then I will send those questions along to you. Thank you.
I'm gonna move people recreate because people have left. So I'll go ahead and open up all the rooms, and I've set it for 15 minutes, Jenna.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we'll just wait for everybody to jump back in here. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you guys had some really good conversations in your groups. What we're gonna do now is we're just gonna go through the different breakout rooms to give people an idea of what other institutions or other supervisors may be doing to help people kind of phase back in. So I'm gonna start with group 1. What challenges are you anticipating for your personal care as we return? And how are you going to adjust with that?
We chatted a lot about our own personal things and what we've kind of adapted to in the past year. Most of our group is actually from Western Canada, so a number of us have been in a very different situation than Jenna at Humber in Ontario, but our challenges that we're anticipating are just general sense of unknowns around return to campus, return to work, online versus in-person offerings. And I think also just this sense of like, maybe we know what's happening right now, but 6 months, 12 months from now, just that sense of unknown is definitely stressful. About having to figure out new routines this fall when we do eventually return back to campus, or when kids go back to school, maybe, still don't know. And then the task of last minute opening, if things do open up, how do we actually accommodate that? We did chat a little bit about self-care for students, encouraging open channels of communication, supporting them to be resilient and to adapt to change. And then Alberta had some great suggestions. When you actually have check-ins with students, they build out semesterly plans, and they actually ask them the question, like, what is your plan for self-care? What does that actually look like? To actually be very pointed in those questions. And then engaging with your support centers on campus to provide them with resources to actually support that plan for the fall, which I really like that. Actually being pointed about asking them, what is your plan for self-care in the fall?
Awesome. Thanks, Christina, in group 1. And I think that's really important, right? Like, we honestly can say, we all go up to our staff and say, how's it going? Oh, I'm good. But, you know, do you really continue that conversation and hold them accountable? What things are you doing outside of work to take care of your health and well-being? One thing, what I do with my staff is I have returning staff paired up with incoming staff. So they are their mentor, but once a week there to check in and say, how are you feeling on a scale 1 to 10? How are you feeling work-wise, academically, personally? And from there, we've been able to kind of have some honest conversations and be proactive with students who are feeling stressed or overwhelmed, and to catch it before it gets too bad, before they get too overwhelmed, and really provide those resources. And I think the students feel more comfortable talking to each other than they are going to often talk to their supervisor where they need support. So having that person check in with them and know that they care has been helpful for us. But Alberto, I'm definitely going to steal that from you. So thanks, Christina, for mentioning that, of implementing it. So I was with the room 2 group on it. Nobody wanted to talk, so you get to hear me a little bit longer. But it was very helpful because we had a student in our group. So speaking with Angie from Ryerson in regards to focusing on your student staff and how they are going, or how you're going to help them return, was very helpful to hear her insight. So Angie is just wrapping up her first year, which I don't think anyone coming into first year would have predicted that this is what it's going to look like. But there was 2 things that jumped out that she mentioned that I, kind of stuck with me. And the first one is she's noticing now, just going out for groceries, she's exhausted. That those simple tasks that we, did before, we'd work all day, we go to the gym, we grab groceries, whatever, and get home and we'd be ready to cook dinner. Well, now the impact of having to do all that almost somewhat seems overwhelming. And helping your body adjust to doing all those tasks again is something that we need to be mindful of. So knowing that students are going to be a bit more exhausted, getting back into that routine, are they going to be able to work as many hours as we need to be? Do we need to be a little bit more flexible? If someone, calls and says, I just can't make it in today, are we going to be a bit more forgiving of that, as opposed to like, no, you're supposed to be here. This is your shift. We need to run a facility. So having a bit more forgiveness there. And the other thing that she mentioned that I thought was neat was, she's very appreciative of Ryerson giving her the opportunity to stay employed and getting different tasks. But then she also indicated that, this wasn't what she was hired for. And, questioning it, we had a conversation of, does she have the skills and the interest in what these new projects are that she was assigned? So again, is being mindful when you're giving students projects. I'm sure they're very appreciative of those hours, and definitely it's helping with the financial stress right now. But is it something that they're even interested in? Is it something that they want to pursue? Is it a project that they're going to enjoy working on? So making sure that you're having those honest conversations, and telling them if it's not something they're interested in, that's okay, that you can maybe find something else for them. So that was good. And then Heather from Okanagan talked about how she's going to use a mental health wheel to be able to work with her team and her students. And Heather, I'm not sure if that's something that you might be able to share with us, but she's working, I think you said you're working with the government on that. So being able to use that with her team and go through the different stages and checking in with her team to make sure that people are comfortable and they're doing well in their roles. And then Michelle mentioned how she is going to start each staff meeting with a 3 to 5 minute mindful meditation to be able to help them just kind of calm down and enjoy the space, but then knowing that she's teaching them a skill that they'll be able to move forward with something that she thought would be very beneficial. And then the last one is our big one, is how are you going to integrate self-care and programs and services for your student body, the people we serve every day? And is there anything new that you're going to be introducing as a result of the past year? So is there anyone from group 3 that would like to give us a bit of a summary?
I'll do my best. I'm sure I won't do the other schools justice, but I'll refer to my notes and hopefully touch on things at a high level here. So yeah, I mean, it was really good to share what's happening, and then a couple of things that people are working on. University of Toronto, Mississauga, Cindy and Nikki have spent a lot of time on various types of yoga programs and different ways of offering the yoga programs. That's their specialties as well, from one-to-one to workshops, drop-ins. And I think Nikki used the word exam jams, the phrase exam jams, which I'm really going to try and steal if that's what, because I thought it was just great. And then they've incorporated some meditation within their yoga as well. To help. And I think they've mentioned, probably similar to most of us, that numbers have dropped off over this past spring, but they had really good engagement earlier. UBC, oh, I'm so jealous what Brian's got going on over there. I'll just skip to the awesome stuff. They've got a forest right beside their campus, so they're able to get people out hiking and cross-country skiing. It's just, I mean, hey, I know they know how to do it over there. It's not new. They've known this for a while, but it's so much more important now than it would have been even in the past. And Algoma, Northern Ontario, similar to UBC in some respects, in that they were able to open more than a lot of people in Ontario. So while they were open, similar to most of us, whenever it was possible, registrations, limited numbers, and all the different cautions put in place. But some of the neat things that Rachel had mentioned, stress busters and stretching at your desk and active works spaces. That was really interesting for all of us to hear about. I think it sounds like students and staff really took to it for quite some time. Maybe not as much at the beginning and maybe tailed up, but people needed it. They realized they needed it because they're at their workstations so long. So it sounds like they've done some really good work around that. And then just a couple new things from York, I guess specific to this, is hiring a meditation instructor ourselves and offering that in-house. So that was a pretty neat addition for us. It was new for us, although it had happened intermittently on campus in other areas. And then most recently hiring another yoga instructor. We've got 4 that are going regularly, but another one, but specific to Eastern style, meditative, spiritual type yoga. So quite different than the, I guess, traditional North American yoga that we're somewhat used to. So that's helped us with everything we're talking about today, as well as hit some gaps in demographics that we haven't been able to hit on campus as well. Yeah, so that's kind of high level on the things that we discussed.
Awesome, thanks, Art. Sounds like you guys had some really good idea sharing. Exam jam sounds great. Stress busters, these are some good names. So definitely going to be some great opportunities for us to collaborate, I think, across the country. And that's what I love about this this industry that we're in, is we'd rather share than compete, right? So being able to share the different ideas of what people are doing to ensure that their teams or their students are being successful and being able to help across the country there. Perfect. So we're going to move on here. So here's some self-care ideas of things that you can look for within yourselves or look to incorporate within your team. So drinking water and eating well, getting enough good sleep. So making sure you're going to bed on time, you're not staying up all night, and waking up early. Heather shared with us that she's been waking up early every morning just to read. And I think, what do you say? You've gone through 16 books in the last few months. So just spending time focusing on yourselves and, getting up early and go for a walk or read a book. Plan ahead and create a routine like we've talked about. Ask for help. And I think this is a big one. Mental health is something that we've all become aware of even more this past year, and taking time to check in with each other. Just sending a message to someone you might not have talked to in a couple of weeks. Hey, just want to see how things are going. What's new? And really offering that support, but also knowing when you need to ask for help. Work out on a regular basis. So whether it's a walk, whether you just skip for 10 minutes, whether you stretch, like Rachel was speaking about in their group, stand up and stretch just when you're in between meetings or, between emails, just kind of shake it a little bit, get yourself moving in some kind of capacity. And download a self-care app. There's so many that you can download now. So whether it's meditation, whether it's things you can listen to as you're falling asleep, or whether you're someone who has an Apple Watch and you can track the different activities you do in a day and make sure you're meeting those steps, or make sure you're getting your heart rate up. Check in with your coworkers. Again, whether you're not seeing them or whether you are seeing them, it's so important right now just to see how people are doing. I think of all the parents in Ontario who are trying to work full time, they're also trying to make sure their kids are not going crazy as they're online learning. And I know that is impacting them as well, right? Like, you're worried about your children not being able to be social anymore or to get those experiences. So it's also impacting you and your health on a day-to-day basis. So check in with each other. Partner up with staff. So as I mentioned, the new and returning, encourage check-ins in a support system. So give your staff someone else to check in with other than yourselves. Their comfort level may change with a peer. And work-life balance. This is a big change as well. People aren't commuting. People aren't working those long hours. People are adapting their hours. They may work a few hours in the morning and take a break to have lunch with their children, or just go for a walk and then check emails after dinner. There's that flexibility now. So as you return, be very mindful of the hours you were putting in before, and be mindful of the hours that you want to put in now. Think of your health, think of your well-being, not only of yourself, but also of your team. Are you going to spend one day at home a week where you can just focus on emails and get things done? And maybe you're in the office 4 days a week, but really look at what that's going to look like and plan for that. Have those conversations with your supervisor of what you're going to need. If you don't ask for things, or you don't say what you need, it might not get delivered. And I thought this was neat. I actually found an article this morning. Amazon has released a new program called Working Well. And this article just came out at 7 a.m. So I thought it was very good timing. So it was interesting to read through that they've had a department within their organization really focusing on the well-being of their student or of their staff, and focusing on creating videos at the beginning of each shift that talk about how to push and pull effectively, or it's talking about nutrition, or it's just talking about, care of your coworkers. They have different sessions now that they're offering on nutrition. They have active sessions that they're offering. So just really looking and seeing what other organizations are doing, and maybe get some new ideas or initiatives that you can incorporate into your own team. All right, and now I'm just going to open it up here. We have a couple minutes. If there's anything anybody wants to share, any questions, comments, I'm going to leave it for you guys if you want.
I'd be curious to hear from some of the other schools on any new or unique programs that have been offered recently, if anybody's willing to share.
Is there any ideas that things people kind of maybe have percolating in their minds and they're looking for September, maybe want some feedback on something?
I can share a little program that we did for our students this year. It was we did a conversation cafe chit chat series that we kind of just organized and interviewed students, and it was very interactive. And we did it in various positions on campus, and it was more just information for students, how they can get engaged on campus. During the pandemic, we were fortunate to be open, but not a lot of students knew that they could come on campus. So it was more, we did it through our Instagram account, and just it was ways to stay active, how to use the weight room, etc.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing, Brian. That's awesome. Now, you used your Instagram. So was it Instagram Live? Was it videos? How did you get that engagement from the students?
So we did it just videos. So I got very good at editing videos and filming. So that was something that we picked up this year. And then we did a lot of like prizes on our Instagram account to get that engagement. So we did a giveaway week where we did 4 $100 gift cards that we gave out, from one from Lululemon, one from Sports Check, and then some other businesses. So that kind of increased our engagement on our Instagram page. And then we put these videos in at the same time. So they were coming to enter this contest, but they were also seeing these videos as well. And then we partnered with a bunch of local businesses to give gift cards out to those businesses as well, which encouraged engagement in the community as well, and supporting the businesses when they might have been closed or only doing pickup service.
That's awesome. Very cool.
I can share a little bit too, I guess. That it might be different, I'm not sure, but for us it was a bit different. But we spent a lot more time on nutrition seminars, mental health seminars, cooking classes. I was fortunate to hire a full-time staff person who has these backgrounds, a combination of backgrounds and such. So to be able to talk about, whole and plant-based foods and how they affect school and mental health and everything, it's gone over really well. We've partnered with a student club that's really helped ensure engagement, 30 to 50 people every time we do something. So it's been really well received and has led to other partnerships on campus, just this focus on cooking and healthy eating and nutrition all together. And the social piece is always there too. We try and make sure it's not just education. But yeah, that's kind of done really well this year, and we're looking to expand that a bit more too.
I can
Awesome.
actually jump on that. That made me think what Art's saying is we're kind of aspiring to some of those sort of things in the fall. So it's funny, it's been something I've been thinking about for about 2 years, but when the pandemic hit, I kind of had to put kind of a stop on everything. But this year I put a bunch of proposals together to add basically like a whole well-being arm of what we do. So we're going to try, like, I've talked to a number of others, and are you just kind of confirming that I think this nutrition stuff, I think, is really, so students are looking for it. And I think it's something that, like, like not everyone likes to play volleyball, but everyone eats. So I think there's a reach there. So anyways, we're hoping to reach different students and then maybe find ways to engage them in other ways as well. So through nutrition, we're going to do some stuff. We're starting this summer actually doing like a walking, it's an alliteration with a lot of W's, but Walking Wednesday. There was some, my staff person leading it had like 4 W's in it anyways. But it's, so we're going to do it on Wednesdays. We're having one for students and one for staff. And we, as I was telling our group earlier, we're really fortunate. We have these trails through the forest on campus. So we're going to take groups through there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have an education session in every Wednesday when we do it. So we'll have, and so some of it will be, we have a biology department that studies that, it's called the ecosystem study area. So we're actually going to bring students from that area who are going to talk about, there's lots of snails I've heard back there. So tell us about the snails. And we'll the other things, talk about mindfulness and, you know, maybe do some forest bathing, you know, different aspects, but so there's always a theme whenever we're doing a walk. So that amongst a couple other things, we're going to give it a try and see if we can engage some further. And, you know, with this whole mental health, all these struggles, we just feel like, you know, we've got to go there, opposed to just kind of our regular stuff, which will get engagement, but I think the future is probably this other stuff.
And I think that's a lot of the things sometimes we struggle with, right? Is campus recreation. It needs to be active programming. We need to be moving. There needs to be kind of some sport or fitness side to it. But this has really given us a time to reflect and, you know, look at different programming as well. That campus rec isn't just about the physical, it's also the mental and emotional. So whether it's cooking, whether it's just, you know, taking a stroll and learning about snails, whether it's cooking, excuse me, not cooking, painting, right? There's so many different ways that students find that calmness within themselves and finding ways that we can meet them there instead of, you know, asking them to come and do a program that they might not be interested in. Now, Rachel, I saw you unmute. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, we focused a lot on, we have a pretty diverse campus. We are about 60% international students on our campuses. So we had the unique challenge of a lot of our students were studying virtually from everywhere in the world that you could imagine. So what we tried to do was integrate recorded programming that we could share. So we did dance days, for example, and we did like Bollywood dance. So for a full week, we ran at different times. So on Mondays, it was in the morning. On Tuesdays, it was at midday. So it didn't matter where you were, you had an opportunity to engage in the session. The presentation was recorded, and then there's like live staff and students facilitating and participating. So it was a really great way to share the cultures on our campus, which is something that's pretty unique, and it's an interesting experience for sure, because it's so diverse and it's different from year to year. But it also allowed us to serve that engagement and that social aspect of the university experience, where these students are coming from around the world to engage in Canadian culture or in different cultures and meet new people and have those social experiences, not just to earn a degree, and really focusing on how to offer that with those circumstances that we were in. So it was challenging, but it's ultimately something that we're going to continue to offer in a hybrid presentation when we return to campus. So it'll be virtual and in person. So it's something we're excited to continue.
That's awesome. And you're probably having the opportunity to engage people that you likely wouldn't have seen in your program, or that you wouldn't have.
Tons more. Yeah, it's really cool, actually.
That's awesome. Well, I'd love to see some information on that if you're happy to share. I'll try and reach out to you through email and can forward it along. But sometimes it's nice just to kind of look around and see who's in our student body that we can engage into our programs and utilize their backgrounds or their cultures and offer a program off that. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. That was amazing. And I'm looking forward to absolutely to see more information on that. Perfect. And Heather just posted a link here. I'm going to see if I can copy and paste it to everyone. Let's see. So that was the wheel, the wellness wheel that Heather was talking about from Okanagan College that they're going to look to utilize with their teams there. So I'll try and get the link out to a few more of you that I saw on the call and be able to share that with you. So the upcoming roundtables, if anyone's interested in registering in any more, we'll have equity, diversity, and inclusion with Peter Mumford next week, emerging trends the following week with Tanya, and then improving student engagement on our teams and in our programs. And just remember that registration is required, and you can access the links for registration from the NIRSA Canada website. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully you found that you learned, or you're going to be able to take at least one thing away with you. And the best lesson for all this is just be mindful of how you're feeling as you're integrating yourself back into the workplace and creating your new routines. So stay healthy, stay well, and I wish you all the best over the next few weeks as we hopefully return in person. Thank you, everyone. Take care.